Hello everybody! After putting more than 400 hours playing Elden Ring, I want to share with you my opinion about some of the comments that I read, some negative reviews that I read about Elden Ring. Someone gave a negative review because the game doesn't support 20:9, but I mean ultra wide. And from what I've read, by the way, I haven't tried it myself, Elden Ring won't support it, it supports 16:9. So if this indeed is the case, is it worth getting even negative review in general? I don't think so. But again, I agree with you, it would be nice to have this aspect ratio available in the game. This is true, by the way, for many players who reported major optimization issues playing on PC, and of course this is true, the game was launched with major performance issues. So I agree in that. Giving a bad review, a negative review on Steam for example for that, well, I can understand that. Someone complained that basically the game is not for solo experience without actually using paths, summons in the game. To be honest, I play with summons and actually part of the game you can decide to use it or not. But basically, just so you know, there are ways to play the game. Of course it's going to be much more difficult, and of course I can understand that some games complain. But it is possible, but it will be harder. Whether it's worth a negative review? I don't think so. Boring crafting and useless items. I mean, I agree with you that crafting can be boring, but again, it's not something it's a big deal in the game. You collect things as you go, especially easy when you're traversing the world with your horse, and you can decide to craft. It's very easy to craft things. So I don't know what, I mean, it's boring, maybe yeah, but it's very easy to do in the game. Useless items, well, depends. The thing is that there are many items in the game because you can actually create many unique builds. And it's not like some games that we actually go in specific class, you're going to find specific items. And this was mentioned as part of the comment. I mean, I can understand writing that, but again, the idea is that you have plenty of items to find and you can create really cool builds and discover cool builds as you play. Really great for replay value and those who actually invest a lot of time playing the game for New Game Plus and trying out different builds and classes. There are players who actually said that hackers invaded the world playing on PC from what I remember, and permanent Deathloop. Yeah, there was an issue that was patched, so if somebody actually left this as a negative review, and still is, well, maybe they should change it because it was patched, but I can understand why they posted it in the first place, and some players just don't go back and actually change their negative review, so understandable. Repeated bosses, some mentioned repeated bosses and areas, which they are, but again, my first playthrough, I didn't even pay attention to it. Everything just felt new and refreshing everywhere I go. But there are, but it's not something that really you're gonna say, well, it's just the same thing. Oh wait, it's just the same thing. Maybe some will pay attention to it. I haven't, and for me, everything just felt like new every time I went to another location. But again, there are repeated things, areas, but not something that you're just gonna make you don't like the game because of it, because the game is huge, massive, and there are so many unique enemies and interesting places that are different from each other throughout the world. Some mentioned game is about not attacking bosses directly. Actually, this is just part of it. There are many bosses where I can actually attack directly, and I did put something against fire and I attack the boss, so I can get damage while actually near him and attack him with a weapon. There are others that actually cap distance. If you use spell casting, you're gonna keep your distance. I mean, you can decide to do it and decide not to do it. It'll be more punishing if you are close, sometimes, but again, it's up to you, depends on your build. Whether it's a negative thing, I don't think so. Now, some mentioned 60 FPS cap. I'm playing on the PlayStation 5, so again, playing on 60 FPS was very smooth for me. Although it might not be constant 60 FPS, I really have no problem with the frame rates. It was absolutely super smooth. But again, for PC, I can understand if it's the case, can be an issue, and I'm sure that some players actually were disappointed. They have good hardware and they wanted to play a faster FPS. I can understand if they, for example, leave a bad review because they're disappointed in this aspect. Whether it's worth completely negating the game because of that, no. Some say just this horrible port. Well, it seems for me, well, that the game was designed optimized for consoles, because again, it runs just so amazingly well on the PlayStation 5 for me, and there's so many players who actually have problems, so it seems it's not optimized well for, well, say, a saturated hardware. So I can understand the frustration and leaving a bad review. But again, make sure to check up updates of the game. If you're planning to buy the game, just make sure those issues are solved. It doesn't mean that you're gonna have issues. Some haven't had any issues. but many actually do. That's why you see so many negative reviews on Steam about players mentioning performance issues. There are plenty of players who actually mention that the boss are actually, in terms of their design quite bad. I read many things regarding the type of moves and the speed, and some attacks can be avoided. There's so many ways that actually leads to some players trying to cheese bosses. But I haven't cheesed, and I actually played with what the game has to offer. And actually, you know, as a new player to the Souls genre, I actually find the boss fight to be very engaging and entertaining. And even if there were some tough situations, I actually enjoyed finding things that actually make it be easier. But I'm sure there are players who are going with certain builds that find it to be very frustrating. But I can speak for my playthroughs and what I used, the build I used. It was actually lots of fun. But there will be players who will complain that some bosses are kind of overwhelming, aggressive, and they have crazy combos and really giant AoEs. And the arena isn't designed well. There are plenty of things like that. But again, as a player who played it, with what I played, again, I didn't know anything when I played it. Just things that I wanted to play in terms of playstyle, and they work well. And sometimes, of course, I made changes. So again, that just shows that every playthrough is different for different players. And for me, it was magnificent. I haven't problems at all. I mean, I had issues where I need to play sometimes several times. But again, overall, I'm very pleased with what I played. And that's just me. Don't hate me for this. Alright, next one is players mentioning, again, I'm compiling this, it's not direct quotation of comments, bad multiplayer. So mention disconnections and crashes, and some actually even did not know how actually to do multiplayer with co-op. There are plenty of issues, unbalanced PvP. So basically, even for me, it took some time to understand how to do co-op properly, but once you do, and I post a video about it on my channel, it's quite easy. And actually for me, it worked flawless without many of the issues that others are complaining about. But I'm sure they are complaining for a reason, that there are issues, but these are things that can actually be improved by patching the game. But keep in mind, there are players who wanted to play this with a friend together, so I can understand that if this was, for example, something in the main purpose of the game to play co-op or PvP, and if there are issues, I can understand why they left a negative review. There are some complaints about players doesn't feel that progression is made well, or some say that they don't feel any sense of progression at all. Well, I don't know what you are talking about. Actually, sense of progression is always there. You always find items. The game is huge. You can explore different corners of the map, and you always find something that can be useful. Maybe not for your specific build, but it doesn't take long. You find items that are great, and it's just about experimenting with different things, part of the fun of the game. So with this one, I definitely don't agree. I always felt that I'm actually progressing in the game, and this was one of the things that felt amazing, especially in an open world game. It's very, very well designed. Some players mentioned that the bosses are made intentionally super hard, so players will actually need to farm and spend more time playing the game. Now, I think that, again, I haven't played the previous Souls games, so I can understand that compared to previous ones, the game might feel much harder for players, even for experienced players. And you actually heard that on streams who played the technical preview, that actually said, oh, this game is hard. So, well, based on my experience, I can understand that, because some players don't want to invest a lot of time in the game. So probably around 30, 40, 15 hours-ish is probably enough for them. But again, there will be situations where if you have enough time, you can actually overcome this difficulty by just playing more, leveling up more. So I can understand that maybe in some way, in terms of balancing, it just feels like maybe you can't finish it as quick as you hope for. But there are players who are actually finishing it as around 35, 40 hours. So plenty of them. So it is possible. Just keep this in mind. Some mentioned Depressing World. Well, I can't disagree more. To be honest, when I saw other games like Bloodborne, that looked depressing, dark, and so maybe too dark to my taste. Although I haven't played the game yet, and I intend to. But keep in mind that this game is actually very welcoming in terms of design. It was designed actually so the first area will look like, you know, more colorful, more inviting, and actually the entire game I haven't felt that the world is depressing. It actually was very immersive and fun. I really enjoy playing it throughout. So, well, this is subjective, of course. I personally love vibrant and very kind of bright games. So for me, again, coming from the casual game that doesn't look that, what people describe as dark, and it is a dark fantasy game, but overall the environment was absolutely very inviting for me and I really enjoyed. Again, subjective, but that's my opinion. But I can understand people sharing that opinion about the game. That was actually a funny one. I read one person actually sharing that it was mad because it kept dying and actually gave a negative review and he said it will change it after he feel less frustrated. I actually found it funny. I don't know if it's serious or not, but again, leaving is just a negative review for that. But I can understand that, because for some players, keep in mind that although the game for me, as a person who haven't played Souls games, like casual games, there was of course higher difficulty. It took me some time to get into the game, but again, once you give the game time, it becomes much easier. The thing is that I can understand that it will be much more frustrating times compared to a casual game. Whether it's worth as a negative review, well, maybe for some, but not for me. But there will be situations where players will try to project that negative feeling into the review itself, although I'm sure that after they play a bit and they get used to it, get some new items, level up, the game will start open up for them and they will feel the beauty of the game and how fun the game is. But I can understand a person who's frustrated leaving a review because of that. I can understand that. As you can see, I disagree with many of the things said, but there are things that of course are legitimately and of course factually true, and especially when it comes to performance. Just imagine a player waiting for so long to play the game, especially if you are a Soul games fan and you have very good hardware, or maybe if you buy hardware, good hardware just to play this game, and you expect it to play high frame rates and you can, when you have a widescreen monitor and you can. So overall, I want to hear your opinion. What things you didn't like about Elden Ring? Forget about what you liked, what you didn't like about the game, and whether it's worth leaving a negative review because of that or just slashing the game because of that. Let me know in the comment section below. Again, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.